Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our Good Friday service. We're glad that you have joined us. Glad if you are joining us online as well. Thank you for being here. First of all, if you would make sure that your phones are off or on silent, just so that it doesn't disrupt during the service. Also tomorrow at 10 o'clock, right? There will be a holy hike at Stenton Marsh, and you are welcome to join. Kev and Teresa will be leading that. Be a little bit of hike, nothing rough, and some points of reflection along the trail, centering around our Lent and Holy Week theme. If you want more information, check it out or look on the Facebook group. Don't forget, on Sunday, we will be back to kind of finish the story, if you will, for Easter Sunday. So I hope you join us for that at 11 o'clock on Easter. The service today, we're going to begin with a time of singing some worship choruses. And I encourage you to do just that, to worship God as we reflect on this day. And then we'll move into readings taken from chapters 18 and chapters 19 of the Gospel of John. And we won't read the whole chapters, but parts of them. And interspersed throughout the readings, there will be some short videos to kind of help us reflect, so we can pause and reflect on what we've read. And then after we finish that, we'll have a closing hymn. And then you are welcome to remain in the sanctuary if you want, as long as you would like to, for a time of reflection. You're welcome to leave if you're ready to leave. If you feel the need to chat with someone about the events or just want to share, you're welcome to move into the church hall and do that as well. Just try to maintain this a quiet space for those who want to reflect.
Peter followed him at a distance right into this courtyard, and you probably know how the story goes. Peter absolutely swore to Jesus, "I will never deny you." 3 times in this courtyard he denied Jesus. Jesus was inside, speaking before Caiaphas the high priest. There he gave an extraordinary speech where he quoted from Daniel chapter 7, declaring himself to be the Son of Man who would be enthroned on the clouds of heaven. With that he was struck by the high priest for what he considered to be blasphemy, and there they conspired to have Jesus executed. In other words, right at the point where Jesus needed Peter the most, he failed him the worst, right here in this courtyard. And yet, after his resurrection, just as Peter 3 times denied Jesus, Jesus 3 times gave Peter the opportunity to reaffirm his love for Jesus, as if to say, your failure does not disqualify you. You can still be one of my disciples. Don't you love that about Jesus? Our failure does not disqualify us from being one of his disciples. Peter found that out right here in the courtyard of Caiaphas the high priest, just outside Jerusalem.
There in the dungeon beneath what would have been the Roman Praetorian Guard, and this is thought to be a place where Barabbas, a prisoner who was guilty, he caused insurrection and violence in the city of Jerusalem. He was being held here, but he was exchanged, and Jesus may well have been held here as a prisoner, awaiting trial and sentencing from Pilate. There's this amazing moment where Barabbas and Jesus are exchanged, a picture of the cross, the Christian message that Jesus took the place of the guilty, so the guilty can go free. We're in the prison cell beneath the Pilate's palace and the Roman guard here in Jerusalem. We're in the Roman Praetorian Guard area in Jerusalem where coins in a stone where they would have thrown dice and gambled, and they gambled with Jesus. They played a game with him. It was like a piece of chess to them, a toy, as he was blindfolded, and they struck him and said, prophesy who hit you. And they cast lots for his clothing. This is 1st century stone in Jerusalem that bears the marks of a game where Jesus was held prisoner and ultimately sentenced to crucifixion.
Let us remember. Let us remember how his mother was dead. Let us remember how people mocked him. Let us remember how his friends fled. Let us remember how in the midst of all of this, Jesus still shows us love. Please rise as you are able, and let us sing together.
There's a place where mercy reigns and never dies. There's
Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the headquarters so as to avoid ritual defilement and be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered, "If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews replied, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My realm is not from this world. If my realm were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my realm is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him. But you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you want me to release for you the King of the Jews?" They shouted in reply, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was abandoned.
Well, in Jerusalem, this is the site that was Pilate's palace. And having been tried by Caiaphas, the high priest, the Jews had to secure the Roman authorities' stamp of approval for execution of Jesus. So they brought Jesus here to Pilate's palace. And here was just across the way is where Jesus was flogged. We'll go there in a moment and see where the soldiers beat him. And then they brought him back, and Pilate famously said, "Behold the man." Ecce homo is the Latin phrase. This is the Ecce homo bridge, which is commemorating that moment when Pilate brought Jesus and ultimately had him swapped for Barabbas, who was the real criminal, And Jesus was exchanged, a beautiful picture of the exchange of the cross ultimately, that he took our place in order that we might find his freedom. And from this site, Jesus was taken, well, he had a 600-metre walk now to climb the hill to Golgotha, and we're heading down there in a moment. This is Pilate's Palace in Jerusalem. This is the Church of the Flagellation in Jerusalem. It marks the site that used to be a Roman praetorium. Here the guards would have had their courtyard, and it's this site where Jesus was flogged. A cat of nine tails was used. It was effectively leather strands with bits of bone and metal that were lashed into the sufferer's back, pulling out even flesh, sometimes even bone from the person. Jesus was flogged almost to the point of death here in this courtyard by the Roman praetorium. And this is where they also twisted into his skull a crown of thorns and placed on him the purple robe to mock him. He'd been called the King of the Jews, and this was a scene where they mocked him and flogged him before ultimately he'd be sentenced to crucifixion and led away to Golgotha, the Church of the Flagellation in Jerusalem.
Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged, and the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they dressed him in a purple robe. They kept coming up to him saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and striking him on the face. Pilate went out and said to them, "Look, I am bringing him out to you, to let you know that I find no case against him." So Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." When the chief priests and the police saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him. I find no case against him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to that law he ought to die because he has claimed to be the Son of God." Now when Pilate heard this, he was more afraid than ever. He entered his headquarters again and asked Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Do you not know that I have power to release you and power to crucify you?" Jesus answered him, "You would have no power over me unless it had been given you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are no friend of the emperor. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself up against the emperor." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside and sat on the judge's bench at a place called the Stone Pavement. Now it was the day of preparation for the Passover, and it was about noon. He said to the Jews, "Here is your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but the emperor." Then he handed him over to them to be crucified.
We're in the busy streets of Jerusalem. This is called the Via Dolorosa. This means the way of pain or suffering. It's the route that Jesus took, having been sentenced by Pilate's crucifixion. He began to carry the crossbeam, having been flogged. He was brutally suffering, and so this is the spot that you see behind me where Simon of Cyrene was press ganged into carrying the cross. Jesus crumpled to the floor here in this way of suffering. And we read in Luke 23 that Jesus crumpled to the floor, and then Simon of Cyrene, who had come in from the country, carried the cross. He begins to climb now up the hill to Golgotha, where Jesus will be crucified. So this is the Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem, the way of the pain of Jesus, bearing the cross and the sins of the world. He went this way. Very spot where Jesus carried his cross on that Good Friday around AD 30 April time, and here he was crucified. In John's Gospel we read the account of this moment. So they took Jesus and he went out bearing his own cross to the place called the Skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha, and there they crucified him. 6-inch nails were smashed through his wrists and ankles. He was suspended on a cross in the hottest hours of the day, from 9 in the morning through until 3 in the afternoon. Jesus had hung in agony for us, and darkness fell in those hours. From the ninth hour, darkness came upon the land, and Jesus was taking, well, the Bible's idea is he was taking our wrong, hence the darkness, the judgment that we deserve for our sin. It fell on him here on Golgotha. And finally, when he'd paid for in full all that was wrong with us in this world, we read this: after this, knowing that all was now completed, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "It is finished." Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Notice he didn't say, "I'm finished," but "it is finished." The great task is accomplished here on Golgotha. The Son of God gave his life as the ultimate loving sacrifice. God so loved the world that he gave his Son. Jesus so loved us, he gave his life. In order to say over all that we've done wrong, it's finished. You can start over and live a new life through Jesus Christ. And all because of that day, AD 30, right on this very historic spot in Jerusalem, where the Son of God was crucified for us.
So they took Jesus, and carrying the cross by himself, he went out to what is called the place of the skull, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on either side, with Jesus between them. Pilate also had an inscription written and put on the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this inscription because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, in Latin, and in Greek. Then the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but This man said, I am the King of the Jews. Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, one for each soldier. They also took his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, let us not tear it, but cast lots for it, to see who will get it. This was to fulfill what the scripture says. They divided my clothes among themselves, and for my clothing they cast lots.
Que croise mercy